fun. I mean, because they had the trials and they had the games too. So I got locked. Track and field that year. Yeah. And I'm going, this is right here, the LA Coliseum. We just had the state meet. Matter of fact, we just had the California state meet in the Coliseum, and I took third place. So I was on that track, and I was like, yo, I'm going to be here one of these days.
That's awesome.
That was cool.
That was the summer of '84. Y'all did that. Y'all did y'all thing. I get to UCLA freshman year, and of course, I walk out on the track as a walk-on. And guess who the hell I see on the track? Everybody that I just seen in the Olympic Games. So my jaws were just dragging on the. I was just in awe, and they were just running past me, running by me, and I could hear Bobby screaming and yelling and cursing out everybody, and I'm seeing people just in the zone, in the zone, and I'm going, man, she just ran 5 200s. She only had 3 minutes out, and I'm sitting there just trying to. I couldn't even work out properly as a walk-on the men's team because I was just so caught up watching them do their thing, and I was going, man. And when I saw that, I was like, well, I'm here with them, but what they're doing seems so out of reach. I'm nowhere at that level. It blew me away, but I was just such a fan.
Yeah.
I was so blessed that I was like, I'm just here. I'm good.
Yeah, it sounded like me when I moved to LA, to train with Bobby Kersey and Flo Jo and all, and I was blown like him. I said, oh my God, what I got myself into. They was running like they were running for, in practice, like they were running for Rail Rocker.
Day.
I said, oh my God. So I'm blown away looking like, oh, I can't run. What I'm doing here. But that moment let me know that I was on that level to do what I had to do.
Yes.
That's an amazing feeling. And and think about it. Those breakthroughs were our breakthroughs because we were allowed to kind of rub elbows, be a part of their world, their level, that atmosphere.
Yes.
And our sport has left such a bad taste in people's mouths, but it's just been so dormant that youngsters don't get that opportunity anymore. They don't. When my crowning glory was always, I used to love the Mount Sac relays.
Oh, that was the
I
best.
love the Mount Sac relays
Pepsi
because
relays.
I remember
the best.
competing there in high school and watching the superstar athletes, and then next you know I'm an emerging superstar athlete, and I'm on the track with my heroes, but I'm rubbing elbows with them. I made it, and it was one of those things where you can run against the world's best, and then you'll sit in the stands and chill and kick and talk to everybody, family, and you walk by, you see one of your track and field heroes, and you because folks fail to realize, although we made these certain achievements, we such fans. I'm such a fan of everybody that I see Danny, and I see Danny Harris, that is, and I just shake my head. And I say, man, I marveled at what you did as a high schooler. Able to bring the noise. And do your thing, and we've all got ebbs and flows in our lives, but we come and we do great things and get solid foundations. And I said, man, my hat is off for you, man. Whatever you need or want from me, man, you got it.
Right.
And it's beautiful when you can have completion and closure. But my biggest thing was the fact that I really want to reach out to these young hurdlers and go out there. The craziest thing is when I go and I sit in stands and I could be talking with you, and we talking track and field. No one don't even know who the heck we are.
They don't.
Right? Until somebody, one of their coaches say, do you know what this is?
Yes, I get that all the time.
And they heard the name, maybe, the statistics, but never put a face to it. I remember in our generation of running, we were always able to put a face with the name. Matter of fact, we knew the name before we saw the face. So you would always, what's that so? You hitting, punching them out.
So we study our sports. We know
exactly.
our sports.
I met. How many long termers have you met? Women long jumpers, young 20-meter and quarter milers that they don't even know who Lily Leatherwood is.
They don't know. They don't know. And these days, I don't think they know the top athletes because they don't study the sport.
They don't study.
Yes.
That's so disheartening because our sport has never been that. You studied first.
Yes.
Then you went out there.
Yeah.
You don't go out there and then think you arrived.
Right.
You know,
Oh.
and my education at UCLA was, I mean, I remember watching Jackie break the American record in a long jump, I think, at the Pepsi relays. And the cool thing about being at UCLA is, we could always volunteer for stuff like that. I would bring the hurdles out, help with the signage and stuff, bring the sodas or whatever out.
Right.
And that was just so cool. And just being around elite athletes. I remember when Evelyn Ashford set the world record in the women's 100 meters. I think I may have been in the 4th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? I think I may have been in the 4th grade.
I remember watching that on TV. I said,
And my
wow.
sister Tony used to my sister Tony used to run just in the neighborhood, just beat all the boys running, and I used to always compare the way she ran and with the way Evelyn ran, just explosive and fluid and bang 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 bang. And I used to say, wow, I bet you my sister can beat Evelyn. And I truly believe that in my heart that my sister Tony could beat Evelyn Ashford. If she couldn't beat Evelyn, she needs to try. She needs to get in the race with Evelyn, and I bet you Evelyn's going to give her, pat her on the back after the race. And I was, in my career as a track and field star, I was so disheartened because my sisters never had the same kind of desire that I had with sport. They boyfriends and whatever else.
Distractions.
And I'm going,
Yeah.
and I wished and hoped, because I believe if my sister would have been dedicated, she would have been on the Olympic team before me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Way before
wow.
me.
What do you think is the best, if we had to give young athletes 3 pieces of advice to propel them to the next level, what would be your top 3 things based on your experience that you would pass on to a young person that's looking to get to that next level?
Patience would be the first thing.
Patient.
I believe just in our sport in general, what we do is you really, and you have to be a student. You have to be patient. You have to be motivated. And
Patient.
first and foremost, you have to be patient, because if you're patient, if you sit down and you can settle your nerves, you will see what your expectations need to be. You can't just fire off. I mean, every now and then you find a diamond in the rough.
Every now and then.
But
Right.
And we've seen them crash and burn.
Freak of natures.
We've seen them crash and burn, because it's just, our sport is you can be talented physically, but if your mental isn't there,
Mental.
you won't maintain it. So you got to be patient. Self-motivated would be the next.
Self-motivation.
And
Determination got to be there.
yeah, and you have to see things in yourself or you got to find someone that see things in you
I think that's the key.
that you don't see within yourself.
Putting yourself in the right environment. I think that a lot of our young people, they don't surround themselves by the right types of people.
Right.
They're hearing too much, and the too much that they're hearing is not the right stuff.
Right.
That's real good. So let's talk about motivation.
Yeah.
How do you develop motivation in a young person? We're talking about the 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, when they're going through that adolescence. How do we develop motivation?
I feel with my son, who's in that age group, between 12 to 15 years old, I give him the motivation by keep talking to him positive, let him know he can do it, keep pushing yourself, think out the box, and just give him that positive note every time he practice or compete, and that stimulates his mind to keep him motivated.
That's a good one. Kevin?
On motivation?
Motivation.
I would. Danette said it. You just have to be positive, and you got to really identify the good things that youngsters do. And if you see someone doing something they don't need to be doing, you have to be critical enough to step in their path and shut it down in a way in which it's not too intrusive.
Right.
Sometimes we could be a bit abrasive to our youngsters, or they're not as tough as we may have been coming up.
Right.
People just was in our face about certain things in which we've done, but get them back on track. I think one of the key things, let's not be afraid to check them in a good way. Because
in a positive way, right?
in a positive way,
good.
give them the option. One of the things is they say you can't tell people what to do, but you can suggest what they can do.
Right.
And if they make up their mind reasonably, they would suggest the right thing to do, because we all have a sense of right and wrong.
Right.
So, and maybe sometimes your suggestions have to be done over and over and over again. However, you're not telling them, because I got my stepson. I realize I can't tell him anything because he is a mother's boy, and he's his mother's son, and I laugh because I was the same way. I grew up without my father, and having that male adult figure in my life at a very early age. So I had to sit back and when he bumps heads with me, I laugh at him. He looks at me and said, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Dude, you just don't know I've been there. I've been there." And then so I can't tell him what this. I said, "Well, let's sit down give me 2 minutes, give me 30 seconds. Let me just suggest what you might want to think about before you do this." And I leave it alone. Right. Because if he screws up, his mother got him. Yeah. She gonna take care of him. But if he makes the right decision, it looks like he made that decision.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm big at the suggested motivation stage. And as we look back as athletes, think about it. How many coaches have suggested us to take a particular role during the workout? They don't give you really much of a choice.
No, they don't give you options.
They don't give you much of an options. They say, "So which one you want to do? Do you want to do 3 500s? Or do you want to do 5 200s? Something like you want to do 10 100s, right? Or do you want to do 2 500s?
Anyway, it's go.
End of the day, you're doing 1,000 meters. You're doing 1,000 meters a day. Yeah. How you want to do it? Because it's gonna, you're gonna bounce around with these fives and hit these zones, or we can hit these back-to-back ones, and you're gonna have enough time to recover.
Right? It's
the same thing. So I would say being patient. As we say, being patient, self-motivating, and whichever form or fashion we try to get them to do it. And you said a third one. I'm sitting back trying to ponder on that third step. How we get our youngsters
motivated.
I guess be a good example.
I think that's a wonderful one. Being a good example.
Be a good example. Because think about it. How many times because we basically model ourselves after other people anyway.
Yes, we do.
Especially in sport. Come on now. Everybody got somebody they got set up the person that favorite one. How they want to, and then you realize you try to be like that favorite one and it don't work for you. Yeah. And then you realize it's some things I got to do. I got to work. I got to get around and work through. And then you go and you come into your own. You come into your own, and then you go, wow, okay. I remember trying to run 13 steps like Edward Moses.
Wow.
And I remember just running up on the hurdle, and for the first few hurdles, running up on the hurdles for the first two, but just couldn't. By the time I got to the backside of the track, I was dead. Didn't know how to manage my adrenaline and all this, and I was just jacked up. So, but over the years, that going back to our three, being patient, motivated, and
having good role models,
and knowing how to pick. Pick your role models.
So you get the right person talking.
Yeah. Because I believe I made plenty of mistakes in different facets of my life, thinking a certain individual is going to look at me in a certain capacity during a certain point of my career. And I realized there's stages of people in your career, in your life. You may be from 0 to 60 that someone's good with you,
right?
But from 60 to 100. They have no business fooling, phasing with your program, No. And that's kind of like a hard part of figuring out.
What really motivated me as a young person, believe it or not, was getting beat. I ran with the LA Mercuriettes, and I was the youngest in the group, and I got beat every single day in practice. I never could be the first out the blocks, never was the first across the line for intervals. Never was the strongest in the weight room, but it just kept something in front of me at all times. And I truly believe that's why I competed for over 20 years. Because by the time I got with my peers, I was like a little bulldog. Let's go.
Let's go.
That was a good motivator.
Whoop my butt every Yolanda Rich, Rosalind Bryan. I forgot there was this British sprinter. Every single day, handed.
That's a good one.
I remember watching. This is one of my greatest. I remember being at UCLA, and Mike Powell was there. Mike Powell just transferred from Irvine to UCLA, and Mike was always a good jumper, he'll foul out here and there, but he would be in the competitions, but he was never one of the athletes in which the announcer would get on the microphone and talk about his exploits. You know, they'll talk about Willie, and they'll talk about, of course, Carl and Larry and Gordon and all those guys. And Mike be right with them, but not among them. Right. So, and I used to look at, and I hadn't even done nothing in hurdles. I was just happy to be on the team. And I used to watch Mike just be frustrated. I heard him call Carl Lewis and any other jumper every MF in the world in that competitive sense and way. You know, just how the nature of what we do. He was just frustrated of why he never, you know, and Carl ain't said nothing about it, but it's all what the announcers didn't say about Mike. And so Mike just, you know, Carl said it. And Mike was just frustrated. I remember, I'll never forget, they had the Pepsi relays at UCLA. That was one of the big meets, right?
Big meets, yeah.
And Mike was one of the top collegiate long jumpers in the nation. One of, I guess, arguably a top 10 one in the world. You know, he's a 27 plus foot long jumper. He did not get invited to the Pepsi relays, and I'm not sure if the coach could have said, "Oh, yeah, it's an open college race," he could have got in the competition and got a jump, but they did not pursue it for whatever reason. And the fact that was the pit that Mike practiced in every single day. And then they have this meet at UCLA on the weekend with all this accolation, and he could not get into the meet. He was piss and fire. Yes. And he would say, "I can't wait. I'm going to break that world." I used to hear Mike say he was going to break that world record. And and he was just such a competitor with Carl and Larry and everybody else. So when I saw him jump in '91 in Tokyo, I saw the lead. I would have to be privy to see the lead up into him and Carl's great duel in the long jump, and so I knew the background story behind it, you know, and everybody, the media would try to take out where it was, but I knew the trial and tribulation and the mess that he put himself through. He went through, and he, you know, just his whole plight. So when he jumped as far as he did, and when they jumped as far as they did, because Carl brought his lunch that day too, I'm going, this is it. This is one of the greatest competitions I've ever seen.
You know, there was magic. There was a stillness in the air. There was this. It was almost like it was anticipating something great happening.
Something's about to go down. Yeah.
Something great happening.
Because I remember in that 200 meters with Gwen, Florence, they was jumping the same time, and they actually paused our race just to see Carl and Powell do that long jump.
Yeah.
And we turned and we say, "What is going on?" Didn't know that they're about to break that record.
Yeah.
And that was a moment we just stopped and looked at the little monitor to see what was going on.
What was going on?
Amazing.
And that was a sign.
Magical.
You know, and then you I'll never forget. We were doing the Gwen. We were doing the clinic at Logan High School. Yeah. And we were on the stage. And you know, every day when Mike would come, they would pull the measuring stick out
and show
how far 29 4.5. And when you say 29 4.5 inches, oh, that's far, that's long. Yeah, it is.
It's long.
When you say it,
stupid.
But then when you look at it, on tape,
how did the world?
You go,
boy.
How?
And then you look at and you see it. Yeah. On the videotape, and you go,
how did he do that?
You just shake your eye. You go, I mean, you know, it's
just like somebody just lift them up, like you say, and just put them over
there. Put him over there. You know, that's, and when folks, and it's funny, when folks tell me about my world record, my vision of it is a lot different. I don't see it as a sub 47 race. I just see it as me beating up on guys who used to whip my butt all the time.
Now, tell us, Kevin, I'd love to get in your head. Tell me what you were thinking about when you were on the line, not knowing when you were going to finish, that it was going to be the world record. Where was your head at?
I didn't know it was going to be a world record first and foremost. But the first thing that happened was this. I walked out of the tunnel onto the track from the call room after they did the number check, spike check, bag check, and all that. And I remember walking out, and they lined us up, of course, according to what lane we're going to be in. I was in lane 4. And I remember crossing over the lane, you know, you're walking through, you're in a straight line, you're taking in the atmosphere of all the fans, and you're looking at the you're looking at the lines of the track, and you're looking at whatever kind of metal bracing they got around the infield. You don't want to trip yourself like that, pin relays or something. I remember walking in, and I never forget. I heard a little voice in my head said, "1988." Remember 1988 when you took fourth place? You took fourth place, and I remember going, "Now this is 1992. This is 1992." And then I went from that thought to all the races that I had in that season leading up to me getting here, of how I beat Winthrop, I beat Sam, I beat Chris, I beat Danny. I raced these guys head up, face to face, beat them handedly, comfortably, and then after that I thought, okay, so what was your game plan when you were successful in beating these guys? And it was, 19 to the first, 13. My step pattern that I had developed and got consistent with over during the season. And my thing was, okay, that's what got you here. You better not deviate for what got you there.
Okay, Kevin, stop right there. That was real good, what you just said. And I hope that people caught that, because even in a world record, Olympic record, world-class athlete, there was some negative self-talk.
Oh, man.
So you can imagine what kind of thoughts go through kids' head, go through collegiates' head, go through emerging athletes' head. And the fact that you counteract that negative thought immediately with a positive thought, giving yourself positive affirmations of what you had accomplished and how you needed to repeat those things.
You know what? It took my nerve. My nerves were here coming out on the infield, but when I said that to myself, like you said, Gwen, it totally settled me. It gave me a calming that once I got into the blocks, I got into the blocks, it became. This is just another race against these guys that you've been running again in big meets all summer.
Okay.
Now on that note you just said, that's why I be trying to tell the athletes today. When you get into those big races, they just the same athletes you raced from yesterday. You just got to have the mental thought that whatever I practiced the day before, I can still do it here with these top athletes. And that's a good
because you think about it. Think how many times you've been in practice. And you've done 10 run-throughs. You know your legs are heavy. You're tired. You got sand in your booty. Sand in your hair. You really don't want to be there. And then coach said, "Okay, Gwen, you got one more run through. Matter of fact, you got the run through. We're gonna take 70 feet off your run through. I just want you to go back 30 feet and then just
give me a pop up.
Pop up. And you pop up and you pop out. And you land in the sand. You go. What?
That's good, and I really hope that our listeners really heard that, because that's something that we need to bottle. Is that fact that everybody has negative self-talk. You have to counteract it quickly, and you have to have your list of what you've done before. So, Kevin, when you were midway in the race, did it feel different?
It felt, my race felt different between 8 and 9.
Okay.
And the reason why I felt different between 8 and 9, I've raced against Winthrop Graham all through my collegiate year on international teams, and and I always known that between coming off the 7 hurdle, approaching 8, and coming into 9, they were always there next to me, somewhere within a half a foot, a half a meter, or right next to me clearing that hurdle. That would be a transitional situation where either I'm going to move away from them or they are moving away from me. But it was always predicated that was to be expected. I remember coming off that 7 hurdle, approaching the 8, and no one was with me at 7, but in my head I said, okay, well, they're going to be coming. Because everybody, once they come out, that they're coming. I remember I cleared the 8th hurdle, and between 8 and 9, I felt a surge. I felt my turnover just said, woo, like I actually added 4 more meters on the field between 8 and 9. But clearing 8 and stepping off 8 and running into 9, I felt that. It's like I felt it. And then when you look and then you go back and look at the video, you see it. And I'm going, that's exactly, I felt the surge. And once I did that, as I got closer and closer to the finish line, and my game plan was, okay, once I got to the 7th hurdle, it's 13 steps to the finish line. You know, whether it be a fast 13 or slow 13, it better be 13 because you practice that, you're consistent with that. And the good thing about it was, it's been times in which I've hit hurdles, but the fact that I was on my dominant leg, I knew how to maneuver and negotiate, just to knock it over, keep it moving. So when I hit that 10th hurdle in Barcelona, I wasn't even bothered by it. I was like, oh, man, I hit it. Let's go. I freaked out because I said, here they come. I know they're coming. But I kept going, and I crossed the tape. And the only thing that was in my mind was, after taking 4th place in the Olympic Games, you just want a medal. You just want a bronze medal would have been as good as gold at that moment in time had I got the bronze or silver. You know, placing the top 3. Because I remember I watched, listened to the national anthem, saw Edwin, Andre, Amadou get those medals, and knowing that I was right there. And I, you know, but this time I'm like, I'm placing. Matter of fact, it went from, I'm not only getting a medal, I'm getting the gold medal.
Right.
It went, and I remember, it's funny because I remember coming across the finish line. Before coming across the finish line, I tell folks this story all the time, that I was trying to figure out which finger I was going to put up. So, and if you look back at slow motion, they had a straight photograph of me coming down the runway, the straightaway. And so I'm running, and I'm running like this, and then I'm running like this, and then I drop one hand and I put the opposite arm up.
Yeah.
And you can see the look on my face. My smile went from, okay, oh yeah, all right. And then it got really goofy and I was like, yeah. and because that was the gold medal #1. You're going to get up out of here with that gold medal. And then,
I remember that.
and I crossed the tape and then I see the clock in the corner. I glanced at it and then it didn't even say, I glanced at it, but you know, when you see the time, and we know as runners, we know once they make the adjustments, it's going to be different, right?
Different, right?
So I glanced at it, it didn't even dawn on me until I got like, maybe I kept running up toward the high jump apron in the field. I remember hearing the guy say in French, and I never understood French, but when he said
That
world
number?
record in
You
French,
understood that?
I knew exactly what he was
That's
saying.
universal.
Yes.
And I was like, what? And
La world record.
with a record de monde. Right? And then I just bugged out. And then I was happy. And then the crescendo was, I had the flashback of all the steps, all things that went through my life that got me to that point. You know, my death of my sister, who I knew really would appreciate it. One of my sisters who I knew where she had been living, she would have really appreciated me because we was real close when she was my oldest sister, and we were both Virgos, and I was her baby brother. So she's always did little cool stuff for me because our birthday was like a week apart. So whenever she's like, I got to make sure our little brother got a little something. I remember forgetting the 70s, she bought her a pair of Levi jeans, and she bought me these little pair of Levi's. And it's like 1972, 71. And she bought a little outfit for her. She bought me a little outfit just like, and I said, that's my sister. That's my sister. So I remember when I won, I said, if all my sisters would have really appreciated this victory, my sister Carmen would have really appreciated it. That's when I've been falling to my knees and going like this and going, I know you see the race. I was saying, I know you see the race, right? I'm going, yeah. And I walked up, and that was it, you know.
Yeah.
So I had my culmination of my Olympic Games was great for the simple fact that my roommate won the gold medal and set an Olympic record in the 400 meters. Wow. And I had to watch Quincy in the room sitting in his bed. Wow. Sitting in the bed with a gold medal on his chest and just set an Olympic record.
Yeah.
And I'm going, damn. My roommate just set an Olympic record.
And you.
And I'm like, it's not that I can't upstage my roommate. This guy just won a gold medal, set an Olympic record. But I go out there and set a world record and get a gold medal. So I come back to the room and we just the Cheshire Cats. We just both gloating.
I'm finna say, how was that moment?
That was a serious moment.
We was walking and it was funny because our suite mates, Jose Perea, Tom Puxes, we were all chopping it up before we all competed because we were all in the village a week before. Everybody's going on in their training cycles with all that anxiety. So everybody's telling each other what we would like to accomplish and do and the hopefulness of getting a medal and just being on the U.S. team. When things started coming together, when Quincy walked in with that gold medal, we were all just dumbfounded. Wow. We were dumbfounded.
That was your motivation right there, right?
And then the whole story of me writing 4678 on the wall. I was in the plan writing 46 on the wall, real small. And Tony Perilla came, busted in the room, scared the hell out of me. What are you doing? You know, and I jumped because I knew it was something I need to be doing. I said, I'm just writing 4689 on the wall. He looked at me and he said, Kevin, if you're gonna achieve that, you got to write that a lot bigger than that. And he told me that to my face. So I was like,
these are some good nuggets.
4, 6. I wrote it all big on the wall with the pencil. I said, well, they're gonna end up painting.
See it. You got to fight the negative thoughts. And you got to look for that transition.
Yeah.
What would you consider a transition area in the 100 and 200 that really can take you to the next level?
That moment, the transition 100, 200 took me to the next level when I ran against Valerie Briscoe Hooks in the 200 meters. When I got close to her in Florence, I knew that I was to the next level.
Mm-hmm. What area in the put me on the
track.
Put me on the track.
It was
tell me where a big transition would be. Would it be out the blocks? Would it be off the curb? Would it be in the middle curb? Would it be when you get on the straightaway?
It was when I got out the blocks around the curb when I knew they wasn't catching me. That's the moment I knew I had a lead. I was an elite level. Mm-hmm. But when I came off the curve, and they was right on my shoulders, I said, oh my God, I'm close.
Fear.
And I knew that at that moment that I was there, Kevin. I really did. And that was just a moment that I would never forget. You like running with the big girls.
The big girls, and you do your thing. And the coolest is when you get that adulation from them.
Yes.
They shake their head, and they pat you on the back and give you a hug. And you just walk off the track saying,
and
I did it.
Yeah, on that moment, Valerie did shake my hand. She said, good girl, good job, baby girl. Good job, baby girl. But remember, we're coming back at you.
Oh, yeah. You definitely got the target on your back at that point.
Coming from Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie.
Ooh-wee.
It's coming.
Ooh-wee.
Ooh, I was scared that day.
Yeah, you better.
But you know what? And also, when you watch, because like I said, I was always a fan. You know, we're always a fan of our own sport, right? If we, although we're in there running, we had the liberty of watching Linford and Carl and those guys and Ben do their thing. We sat back and watched that storyline, tell itself, and we knew what the background cast was. Maybe you probably been a part of the background at any point in their career,
right?
And I remember we hear all the stories and all the craziness, but you see it come together, and you just marvel and like, uh-oh. I never forget this. I remember when running in Nice, Danny ran the race, won the race, kicked everybody's butt. I was just a young gun, happy to be in France, and I made a little challenge against Danny, maybe coming off the 10th hurdle. He finished the race. Danny would run through the tape and throw his chest up and do it.
Yeah, that was Danny. Danny did that all the time.
But I finished the race, took third place, and I never forget Ray Washington, Evelyn's husband. He said, and Danny was very arrogant, and I love Danny for that. I love Danny for that because he was in your face on the track, but off the track he was crazy ass Danny. He left it on the track. I heard Evelyn's husband Ray say, he said, man, you see Kevin? You got to keep your eye on him. And it was like one of those lobby situations in the hotel. He's having the cocktail. He says, and Danny, he's like, I ain't got nothing to worry about him, in true pride and true Danny Harris. Please. He said, no, you're going to have to keep your eye on him because he don't know what he's doing, and he's doing some things.
Yeah.
And it was just tongue in cheek right off, conversation. But I happened to hear that walking through. And I'm going, they got their eyes on me, Nah. They got their eyes on me, and so I knew that I was being, watched, inspected, and being looked at by some very critical people in the sport.
Right. Now, in that moment, when Flo joins Valerie, they moved out the scene. It was me and Gwen Torrance. Remember Gwen?
Oh yeah.
We was bailing out, and on that note was Kevin was saying in Nice, I was the underneath person, like hidden. So they was watching me. I didn't know that because I would keep creeping up on Gwen and
Paulette was
Paulette.
Who else was running? It was
Gwen, Carlette, Gidret.
Carlette
yes.
from Texas.
So I was more underneath them, kind of sneaking in. So They didn't know who I was, but every meet I kept getting closer and closer. Then I started beating them. Then that's the talk they were saying in the lobby. Oh, watch that net. Now she's smooth. Watch that net. And then all of a sudden, I think they would start hiding from me. And then when that big meet came in the Nice, that's when everything clicked. But Kevin, you're right. You was the talk. You be the talk.
You be the talk.
And those are the moments you won't never forget.
You never forget. I just love the fact that I remember I went from being in the B and C races to now I'm in the A race. You don't be thinking about it because you're just happy to get there and get a lane.
Just be with the big girls.
But then you find you in the A race. She's like, damn, a couple meets back, I wasn't here. I was honorable mention. Now I'm VIP. Oh man, yeah.
It was hard.
It was hard. It was hard, and that's when I talk. If you talk with athletes now, that whole scene doesn't even exist.
It doesn't.
It doesn't even. We had to live. I remember we would go to races. It'd be all Americans in one damn race.
In one race.
In one race, you had everybody you competed against at nationals.
And you're in Europe.
You in Europe. You're in Switzerland. There's one Swiss kid that's lucky to be there.
With a little something for you when you get done.
Yeah. They had your Gatorade for you, your water for you.
A little chocolate.
Yeah, a little chocolate. And so you knew you was going to be running against, but it got to a point where you be the only American in there now. We're all Swiss.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not paying you nothing.
Yeah, so on that moment, we need that type of atmosphere back here.
And I think that glory, the kids don't really see the celebrity, the glory like it is in Europe. How big track is and how big the meets are and how many people come out and how recognizable
of the knowledge that they have of the American athlete. You would go in the lobby and you think that you were the only person at the NCAA championship and place in the top 10.
Yeah.
You don't know folks been following your career since you were in high school. And they'll walk up with you. How many times have a person walked up to you with a picture? Yeah. That you were wondering, where did you get? You want to confiscate the picture from and take it, and they got five or six copies.
And that happened to me. I said, where you get this picture from? I forgot about that one.
I think about the long jump when we talk about transitions. I mean, that part in the event that can take you to the next level. It is how well you can transcend from horizontal to vertical. Yeah. That makes the difference right there is that board. It's good to have speed, but if you can't put the board and the flight together, you're not going to go to the next level. It's almost like they're running and then they jump.
Right.
No, it's got to be like a whoop. And I don't see that.
They're not doing that.
And I remember distinctly when Mike broke that world record, when his last 3 steps was so fast that you almost couldn't see it. It was so fast. And when he got off the board, you knew it was something. And how I relate that to myself, I remember when I first jumped 22 feet, I felt something different in my stomach. I just remember I came down the runway, I hit the board, and I went up, and I went to do the landing, and I was like, what was that? I distinctly remember thinking, what was that? And I landed, and I looked back, and I was like, dang. Put that tape out, 22.5. I was like, good Lord. And now, at that time, that was 6 inches off the American record.
And one thing about the long jump, when you do a huge mark like that, it is really demoralizing to the field. At least in a spring event, you're all running together. So at the end of the day, at the end of that race, everybody put out at that moment in time. So it is what it is. In the long jump, you pop a big one, and you can decide the tide of the event, and you can just go sit on your butt for the rest of the day.
That's what I told the long jumpers today. I said, there's two type of jumpers you can be. You could be a jumper that comes in, bust a big one, and sit down, or you can be the type of person that rises to the occasion. But you're going to have to decide. And my suggestion is you be the person that comes and set the tone. You get out, you don't waste your jumps. You get out, you get one big one, and you go sit down. You wait for the finals to make it happen. And don't put yourself in that situation where you got to keep your head in the game the whole time, because that could be a long time out there.
Yeah, the long jump is a long.
You could be out there a long time, and that's a long time to keep your head right and be able to shake it off. And that's what I love so much about the jumps. That makes it different than the sprints and the different the hurdles.
I know.
You get 6 chances to get it right. You're lucky. And I keep.
So that means you got to come in right.
You got to come in right
in order to get those 6 chances.
And if homegirl pop a big one, you got to go back to the drawing board and say, I'm coming with it.
Yes. Right.
You get 6 opportunities. That's awesome to me. And that's why you got to shake each one off.
Have you ever came down the runway, hit the board, no foul, no mark in the plasticine, and had an official throw the red flag up while the crowd, your mama, your grandmama, everybody know that you did not foul. And you have to walk back knowing that.
I wasn't too bad of a fouler. I'm pretty consistent. Let me tell you how consistent I was. I was so consistent. I ruptured my Achilles tendon, got reconstructive surgery, came back, had to learn how to walk again because, it affects your dorsiflexion. So I had to learn how to dorsiflex again. Came back, decided I was going to jump, put out my mark, and hit the board.
Bam.
And it was probably about 2.5 years in between. So I was pretty lucky about being pretty consistent, and I believe that's because I started off as a sprinter. So your stride pattern.
Think about it. And it's funny because now you don't have that combination of sprinter long jumper that we had in the 80s and the 90s.
I'm not talking about that 12-5 kind of sprinter.
No.
I'm talking about the Sheila Eccles kind of sprinter. Like you got to come with it.
Lemon change, 10 or whatever.
Yeah, 10
and 22 feet.
Yes.
All day, every day.
She's a good one.
I mean, I used to, we watched Carl do the one long jump. Yep. We watched Leroy Burrell do the one long jump. Larry Myers do the one long jump. Mike Conley run the 2 long jump. I mean,
triple.
So it was always a combination, definitely of speed and the skill set of being a jumper. I mean, it's hard to put that together in that short of a time.
You know what I see now? I see more hurdler long jumpers.
Really?
They long jump like they hurdle.
Oh yeah.
Like a Jackie. Who else? There's Sharon Couch was a hurdler.
Yeah.
They literally, and you know why? Because hurdlers have good depth perception.
Right, you have to back up.
So they're able to negotiate from speed to reaction, and that makes them great long jumpers because it's the same thing in the long jump. You have to come from speed and then react to the board.
Now that's what's going on with the sprinters today. They can't react to that speed and trying to hit the board at the same time. They got to adjust too much in order to hit it.
It has to be a fluid, like almost like it doesn't change. The only thing that changes, your hips go from horizontal to vertical. But it's the movement from the time the movement starts at the beginning to the time you hit the pit. It's movement, and it should never stop.
And that's what they're not doing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. I really enjoyed this conversation. It kind of morphed into something a lot bigger than I expected, and I love that.
I love that,
and we'll make sure, Ian, we get this record. Well, actually, I believe it is recording. And we get it. We may have to put this up in parts. It's so long. We got to reminiscing and talking, but it was a great conversation, especially talking to you, Miss Youngstone. I haven't seen you in years, and it's always a pleasure seeing you. You just brought up everything that you said about your emergence. Watching your emergence, and you running against Flo and Val and Alice and Gwen, all that. Like I said, it's like me taking the book and flipping the pages, going, "Oh, I remember that page. I remember that. I remember that." So I was there.
Yeah, it was
I was there.
Old days.
Some good old days.
Yeah.